This is embarrassing. You're going to see how messy I am with my holy shit. Oh my God. I have so many, like this one. No, this one. And like, somehow I remember which things capitalized and that's
Hello, everyone. This is the show Isolated Tracks. I'm Julian Martlew, one of KEXP's live and production audio engineers. And today we are talking with multi-instrumentalist and producer Thao Win of Thao and the Get Down, Stay Down about the song Temple from the latest album of the same name. Hi.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. Where are you right now?
I'm at home in Oakland, California.
You're in Oakland, and I'm sitting in my living room in Seattle. Okay, so let's talk about this album. How many albums is this now?
Oh man,
Gosh.
It's 5 or 6, depending on how you count it.
And is this the first one that you self-produced?
This is the first one. Well, that collaborative record that I made with Mira and with Meryl Garbus, the three of us produced that one.
That's Tune Yards, Meryl.
Yes. Yeah. It's Tune Yards, Meryl. But this album, yes, is the first one. It's the first of the Thao and the Get Down, Stay Down that I've produced with my bandmate, Adam Thompson.
Thanks for having me on.
Right on. So let's talk a little bit about the song.
Well, Temple of, I would say there are a couple where songs on the record where they're definitely the embodiment of a collaboration between Adam and me, and Temple is one of them. And
there's like so many versions of this song that what you end up hearing now is it's just wild where it came from and where it is now.
It sounds like, at least for this song, Thao actually made a demo. Like, how does it begin for you guys?
So the first thing that I received, because at this point it was just me and Thao, and I don't think we even necessarily knew that we were gonna like launch into creating a full record at this point. Mm-hmm. This was like, I received a batch of like 3 demos from her, and it was Logic multi-track session.
Yeah.
So I have the multi-tracked version of her demo if you want to hear that.
I would love to hear that. If you want to take us through that, that'd be fabulous.
Sure. And I'll just pause it right there. You kind of get a lot of it. Wasn't, there's a little bit more, and there's like a couple other like sort of iterations, but it's more or less the same thing. But yeah, I don't know, reactions to that, and having heard the original, what you hear now, and this demo, I'm curious what you think.
Oh my God, it's awesome. So, I mean, you can hear the main vocal melodies already there.
Yeah.
And that fabulous guitar line.
Yes. That riff.
The riff. Yeah. I mean, a good riff, man. It's really hard to find these days.
Absolutely. That was one of the first things that grabbed me. And it's the first thing that you hear in the demo.
I wrote that guitar line because I was listening to a lot of rock music from Saigon in the 60s because I had watched this documentary. Just go with me. There's this documentary that I love called Don't Think I've Forgotten. And it's beautiful and it's devastating. And it talks about Cambodia and that art and rock scene, that rock and roll scene right before Khmer Rouge.
Mm-hmm.
And when they were talking about that history, so much of that music and that soundtrack reminded me of things I heard my parents listening to growing up.
Mm-hmm.
So then I sought out music from that time frame and that area. And
were you like listening to a record and flipping back and forth trying to get the tone?
I was listening to, there were just a bunch of songs that I had come across on this YouTube playlist that was just called Saigon Rock. And then yeah. And so there are a few songs on there, those guitar lines, that we would listen to those tones. I would pull up stuff from the Don't Think I've Forgotten soundtrack.
Mm-hmm. And this song, I mean, it sounds like you're singing it in your mother's voice?
Yes, I am. For many songs on this record, the music and the vocal melody existed for a long time without me being certain with the lyrics.
Mm-hmm.
And this song was a prime example of that. I didn't finish writing the lyrics till basically until it was due. And then it just the idea of it just sort of visited me, and then it happened quite quickly. That I knew it would be in her voice, and she's speaking to me in a way that she never has. But it doesn't mean those sentiments aren't there. There's a lot of communication just through action or silence.
Does she like that you are a musician?
I think so. I think she worries about, she used to worry so much about how much we toured, and she just didn't like how unsafe that was.
Yeah.
She's really into safety. She's really into my physical safety. So I think that part stresses her out.
Yeah.
She's very supportive, and she has been, which is really remarkable. But she's always like, you should just become a writer so you don't have to go anywhere.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. Yeah. My mom is Jamaican and has a very similar way of dealing with me and my sister. Do you have to go out there and do,
Right. Yeah. And what do you think that's from? Do you think that's just our parents have experienced enough?
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe part of it is that they left a situation to get to a better situation.
Yeah, definitely.
And so because they're afraid of what used to be, they want to protect you and I from having to experience these things that they got away from.
Right.
Maybe. I mean, yeah. And then also they're just like super motivated for us to succeed.
Totally. Yeah. In a way that is more understandable, or just that in a way that translates more tangibly. Yeah. I know. There was always this idea of like, why would you make anything harder than it already is?
Yeah.
I'll say a couple more things about the lyrics. I wanted this song to be so specific in its imagery because I'd grown up with hearing stories about my mom's life before the war, and they just were they lodged in my consciousness just as images. And then you have the broader narrative of the fall of Saigon, but then only very recently my mom actually telling me about her own experience of running for her life because she worked for the South Vietnamese government. So there were just images that have made up the tapestry of my upbringing that I wanted to cite.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about vocals.
Mm-hmm.
When you are demoing, do you do multiple layers of vocals, or do you just kind of like do a straight ahead thing and then worry about the layering later?
I do a lot of layers because it's taken me a long time, but especially in the beginning of songs, I'm terrified of the sound of my single voice. It makes me feel a lot better. I think it's from always loving Old Modest Mouse. Like I want at least a double, you know? And it helps. Yeah. So I have that. And then I'm figuring out melodies that will either exist as vocals or will be moved to guitar. Sometimes guitar melodies become vocal melodies. Sometimes they're both. I think so for example, with Temple, so I built this groove underneath that we ended up not using. Basically a full-ish demo, but with just kind of humming, you know, to hold down the different vocal patterns. But or it was like incredibly, like several cycles of the song. And from there, it became something really different. And and Adam created a whole other bed underneath the guitars and the vocals, which I loved so much. And it felt like it was a dance song. It felt like the kind of dance song we wanted to be making.
So I was just like, sat with it for about a week and like tried everything I could possibly think of. And just ended up kind of like reimagining the song. Anyway, we ended up with this this is my demo version of the song. So I'll pause it there. That's pretty much as far as we got at that point. It was like chorus, verse, that little intro,
and this incredible bass line. Like you put this bass line. That's you playing, right?
It is, yeah. That's me on this bass right back here, which is kind of my. I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is definitely kind of my pride and joy, I would say. It's a Harmony H27. It's a pretty rare hollow body bass, but I definitely wasn't sure if Thao was gonna like this at all. I had no idea, no clue whatsoever if she was just like, this does not work with what I want to do, or I had no idea. And that bass line that you hear on that demo version is the recording that's used in the song.
Oh, right on.
I can actually solo the bass line if you want, just to kind of get a better picture of what this sounds like, because it's pretty nasty as far as like set tone goes. And so you also see over here that I have like a few plugins on, but let me just give you like the raw. These plugins are also something that I printed onto the version that ended up getting put into the working version of the song.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the dry.
I, like you, am a huge fan of the sound toys.
Yeah.
And so it looks like your channel EQ is just kind of like knocking off the low and the top.
Yeah.
Clean up.
I like the idea of kind of like clipping those off and giving like that sort of like vintage aesthetic. I don't know, it's weird because it's like what you hear now on the recording is a lot more hi-fi, I guess. That like a lot of things happen. So like that's what I can't forget to mention the fact that this is like there's like a million versions of this song.
Right on. So what happens from here?
Then we get to version 2, sending this demo to Thao and receiving her feedback. I think I did it maybe a couple of tweaks, and I may have even like redone some of the parts. We actually ended up going into session because before this point there was no recording session. This is all like pre-production and songwriting before hitting the studio. So the next thing that you hear is our version after the studio. And I unfortunately don't have like a multi-tracked from that studio session. So anyway, I'll play this one for you. Yeah, so that's kind of the beginning. This is also where you see the bridge.
Well, first of all, why would a million dare sink in the sea? What is that about?
That is essentially, that's me paraphrasing my mom, because she did say that to me. And that is from, we took a trip to Vietnam in 2015, which actually helped lay the foundation for a lot of this record, just to get, it changed my life. But then it also, I knew the next record would deal with a lot of stuff that was brought up. But so our band was asked to perform in Vietnam, and I had never been. And my mom hadn't been back since 1973.
Wow.
And I begged her to come with me, and she wouldn't. And she basically, it took a long time to convince her that it would be safe, and also it was, that's what she said. But I think she was there's so much trauma there, so much sorrow. I think it was just so intense for her to even consider returning. But we did, and she loved it, and it was incredible. And but one evening when we were there, she talked to me about freedom. And it was, she worked so hard to raise my brother and me that there was never any time, you don't have this kind of discourse with my mom, so for her to just have this conversation, like out of the blue, bring it up. And I think it just was being back in Vietnam. And she was like, you have to find out for yourself what freedom is. And you have to learn, you have to learn why a million people would risk their lives at sea. And she was talking about the people who had to try to get out.
Yeah.
And she had family who died at sea. I mean, I think a couple nights previous, I had just met a cousin of hers whose the rest of their family perished at sea, So anyway, I knew that I had to include that in the song, and that would be the bridge. And it was really important for me to just repeat that over and over again, because what else is there to say?
Yeah. I mean, it's super powerful, and you feel it when that section starts too. I mean, there's a weight to it, and the beat changes, and it sounds like there's maybe actually live percussion that comes in as well. Like there's such a vibe shift.
Right. Yeah. That was really important. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's an entirely different guitar part that only exists there.
Yeah. So that's kind of the beginning. This is also where you see bridge. So I'll just play that section for you.
That's crazy. The bridge is so awesome.
Thanks. Yeah, that was a really kind of like crucial element to get right for us as well. So,
I mean, that part, the intensity of the bridge, like we talked about it being like the why would a million dare sink in the sea being, which did you have the lyric at that point, or were you still, the lyrics weren't there when you made this part?
No. And that I know that's like the weird, like, I feel like it was like a reverse, like car crash in a good way. I don't know any other way to explain it, but it was just like, like my intentions all along are to like make it as like compelling to myself as possible, and like doing like the most interesting sounds that I can to kind of like pull together the rhythm and the bass and make everything like just really like punchy and like intense and cool, and just like do it for myself, you know. And Thao was really into it, so like feeding off of each other and like making changes together on that stuff, but like not knowing that those were the lyrics that would eventually be on it. It's just like, it's wild.
It's wild.
So there's like a pad behind it that really like sort of drives the chord progression. And that is played on a Wurlitzer through a bunch of different effects by Charlie Glenn, who was one of the people that we had in the studio to play guitar and keys, and is just like one of my super close friends and has been playing in and out of the band for a really long time.
There's this lead guitar that happens at the end that is from our friend Charlie Glenn, who's played on all of our records. And he's like this, he's just so gifted, and we just said basically at the end, you know, the chorus happens 2.5 times or whatever. We needed it to lift somehow, and he just like he was going direct. And so we're all in the control room, and he just like walks up and he just does this perfect thing, which is that high part that you'll hear it. Adam will be able to isolate it for you.
Yeah. So unfortunately, I don't have his like soloed guitar for a period of time. I just don't know where it is. I think I have it on a drive somewhere, but it's like, it's really amazing. Charlie is such a great guitar player. But anyway, here's the outro.
Okay.
So yeah, this mix doesn't quite showcase it like the later versions do, just because I don't know if we really fully understood how like powerfully cool that was.
Yeah,
that part, but at the time, but we definitely know now, and it's awesome. I really like the Fairlight plugin from Arturia. I don't know if you've used that or are familiar with it.
I've heard it. I haven't used it myself, but yeah, I've heard some of these sounds before.
The drums on and like a number of different things having to do with the Fairlight are something that I just like got really, really into on making this record. And it just like embodies that sound of what I wanted, sort of like that late 70s, 80s thing. And I ended up adding this drum part. So I'll just go ahead and play. So you can kind of hear that at the intro of the final version now, and I'll cut straight to the part where it changes. So the cool thing about the Fairlight is that it like just like any other sampler, you can like kind of like pitch the sample, but the way that it loops stuff is like really interesting, and the way that it also pitches it is really like beautiful and interesting. So what you're actually hearing here is the sample being triggered in different octaves and on different keys to get various tones of the drums coming through that blend with the real drums and the earlier it's actually a Lin drum behind that, but let me just so you kind of get this like revolving thing going on with the drums that was just like really doing it for me. And I just thought I'd mention that. There's this other sound here too that I'll just play really quickly. Kind of a scissory sound.
Oh, that's insane.
Yeah, so that's that sampler, and it's just like such a powerful tool. I felt sort of like it's like so good it feels like cheating a little bit, but also like you're able to like go so deep and make it your own that it doesn't feel that way. That's version 2, and so that was like those additional things were added after our first session at Tiny Telephone. And then right here, I have version 2.6. So there's some editing that had been done in that period of time. And I went back to San Francisco after Thao had spent a couple days with Bo, our tracking engineer, kind of like cleaning things up, just doing a few things. And anyway, we ended up at version 2.6, which is the first time that you hear lyrics. So I'll go ahead and play. And I have it separated out of just the vocals and just the instrumental. And I'll just pause it there. It's like it like when this came in and I was like, oh, these are the lyrics that's happening on the song. It's just like incredibly overwhelming.
Yeah.
You can also hear in the background we added a through this next session that we did where it was Thao, myself, and Bo working in Bo's home studio. He has a ton of synthesizers, and so we added a few things such as you can hear it in the background, and it's like this really weighty the bass synthesizer. So it's that was a Poly 6. But anyway, I'll play the verse.
Look at this one, I want you to see. Fashion was high, my hair was so long.
Yeah, so you start to hear like all the little bits of like the pads during the verse, and it just like starts to pull together. Her lyrics are just like, at this point we're like running, like we're just like so invested in this song. Not that we weren't before, but the lyrics just really did it for us, I think.
I can imagine.
So there's also, I think, another crucial addition which happened after this session, which is the addition of these bells from a DX7.
Okay.
Why would I bother to remember when our people, baby, die and live again?
So yeah, I feel like that was like one of these things that was just like, oh yeah, that really just like ties together the chorus at that moment. So yeah, and then I have what's right here is the mixed version of all of these things.
I know you found it, can't call anymore. It never meant to be a man of war. When we found freedom, what will you do now? Bury the burden, baby, make us
So that's the version that we ended up, that was what we thought the final version of the song was going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And then it wasn't. Basically, I got a phone call and we ended up making a decision after that to do another mix, because we didn't feel like it was fully mixed. It wasn't quite to the point where we felt like it was our best work. So we ended up going to Blue and having him mix it, like I said, unattended. So he's in New York and we're like sending him tracks back and forth. But here's this session. So the last version that you heard was 2.9 and this is 3.2. We'll go to the outro because we just listened to that.
Yeah, so you have like this a different level on the vocals, and the drums are probably quite a bit louder and more pointed, maybe.
Yeah, there's like a much, I would say like a blanket was taken off in a sense. Then we got that the Krumar, and I also added on a hi-hat part that I programmed on a drum machine that I have, that I ran through a Moog, what is it called? MIDI Murph. So it's like takes like a filter bank, and you're able to run something through it and automate the filter motion. I don't know if you've ever used one of those. They're really crazy sounding, especially for like percussion stuff. But in the spirit of the song and having the electronic drums being sort of like this constantly like moving, rotating timbres, and like various like pitches are like constantly changing. This kind of does that, but it does it in a really weird way. When I'll solo it for you while we're playing, but it's a very, I think it's a really cool sound. So here's the outro. So that's that part, and it sounds like really. It just has this like really weird rhythm that like when you single it out, when you take it out of context, it almost doesn't work. But just the way that the sort of like the Murph, the MIDI Murph manipulated the hi-hat sound creates this like really interesting rhythm.
Yeah, and it's semi reminds us of the helicopter blades that are being referenced.
Exactly. And kind of in this like what I realized by this point is that my whole like late 70s 80s references were so on point with what was going on with the song that, you know, with the lyrics and everything that was, we were like, it almost like bridging the gap between our generation and her mom's generation. Musically in a way, or attempting to anyway. That final element and sort of like the rigidness, the sort of like I don't want to say like kind of gun like rigidness of this hi-hat part was felt like important. Man, this is we
where are we? We should probably start wrapping up here.
Yeah, totally. Thanks for letting me go on and on about this.
No, this is like, I mean, I could do this every day, all day. This is my favorite thing to talk about, is especially something like this where the original demo to the finished song is there's such a clear through line.
Yeah.
You know that it's the same song. You can feel it right away, but it's completely transformed.
Yeah. It's so cool to like I don't even know if we realized it at the time of what was happening, because it's like stuff just happens so fast, and the way that we work is like we're going by our gut the entire time. Like whatever we need to hear is what we ended up making, or at least we were striving towards. So it's like, it's just it's interesting to kind of like look back at the whole timeline.
And now the song is out in the world, and it's taking on another life, I have friends who talk about this song and what it means to them already, you know?
Yeah.
Like just the power of the lyrics alone, but then being able to capture the kind of zeitgeist of that late 60s, early 70s rock, but it's completely updated and sounds brand new.
Dang. That's a huge compliment.
Yeah, you guys kind of nailed it.
Thank you so much. Well, we I just have to give so much credit to Thao to like being willing to like let me, that first like sort of reimagining of it. I was really worried. And see, like it ended up being, I felt like we were just kind of in lockstep the whole time. So I love the song, and it means so much to Thao and myself, like given like how much it took to kind of create it. And I mean, the song took like 2 years to make. I don't know if it sounds like that really at the end, and I'm not saying it should or whatever, but it's definitely it's a chunk of our lives that I think we'll always remember. So
yeah, I mean, it takes however long it takes, right?
Totally. Yeah. Yeah, we didn't want to stop until it was what we wanted, I guess. So
my goodness. Well, thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure to meet you. I think we've been in the same building many, many times, but usually it's my good friend Kevin Suggs has been doing the live sessions when you've played at KEXP. So yeah, it's super nice to actually get to talk to you about music. And okay. Well, I mean, this has been brilliant. And like I said at the very beginning, I'm Julian Martlew. I'm one of KEXP's live and production engineers. And we were lucky enough to get Adam Thompson to talk to us about the making of the song Temple on the record Temple. And the band is Thao and the Get Down, Stay Down. And you got to go check this record out. And I just really want to say, once again, thank you for taking the time to go through this brilliant song with us.
Thank you so much for having me, Julian.
Justin, are you lurking? Oh,
I'm here. Great. That was awesome.
Awesome.
All right.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Good to talk.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
Ciao.
See ya.
Discover new music at listenerpoweredkexp.org.